So here we're going to be talking about our eye level and how to find it and how to measure to it. And this is a really simple thing, but people have a very hard time with it. It can be kind of tricky. So we want to take our time and go through it. So when we look at the still life here, we can all agree that the objects on the table are below our eye level, right? We're looking down at them. We can see in the vase, even though there's something stuffed in there, we can see the top of the ellipse, right? It's round, so we're looking down at it. Now, if we look at the box that the still life is set up in, we can see the angles that the box makes. We know it's a cube just by our point of view. And we can see all the angles in the front. We can see the angles on the right. We can see that left plane going up. We can see the back plane sort of square to us. But if you look at the very top of the box, if we were looking down at it, the left-hand side would be at an angle. But that's not what's happening. It's straight across. And so if you know you have a flat plane that's parallel to the ground plane, that is moving away from you in space, but it's showing up in your vision as a horizontal line, that's where your horizon is. So our horizon is the top of the box here. Now, in terms of finding it in relationship to your objects, most of the time, you don't even have to worry about it. You can just say, well, it's above my paper. Because most of the time, your horizon, if you're drawing a still life, let's say, most of the time your horizon is going to be above the paper. You're just looking down at the objects, and that's just all there is to it. But when we get into perspective and some other stuff, it's really going to be relevant as to where your horizon is. So I want to make sure we have something that you guys can refer back to on this. So if we take a measurement here, just like when we were doing relative measurements before, if we take a measurement of the vase here with this little plug in it and just go 1, 2, we get, wait for it to focus, we get that the space between the top of the vase and the horizon is 2 vases. So when you go to draw, you just make sure that that's true, and then you base all of your measurements off of that. Now we could do the same thing with the coconut or with the onion, but that would be, well, with the coconut, that would be counting too many times. We'll probably mess it up. But another thing that's worth pointing out is that the fabric, from the fabric to the plane, get that pencil out of there, the fabric to the plane change, that line there is 1 to 1. So the fabric is exactly halfway down between the horizon and that line. So that would be another big thing that you could measure from. Now, if we know that the vase there's 3 vases that will work their way up to the horizon. This is our horizon line. And I said most of the time it's not going to be on the page, but for us right now, it's useful to have it on the page. But if the space between the bottom of the vase and the horizon is 3 vases tall, all I have to do is decide where the bottom of the vase is going to be, and I decided it's going to be there. And now we just divide this in 3s, so we can just guess as to the height. 1, 2, too much. 1, 2, 3, too little. 1. Okay, so that pretty much gets us there. So that means that the bottom of the vase is here, the top is here. Now, because we have the height worked out, in relationship to your eye level, the width is sort of determined. We don't get to decide how wide it's going to be. We just have to figure it out, because the one thing that we know is that the horizon, the top of the vase, and the bottom of the vase are right. So now we can kind of figure out how wide we think it is. If we continue measuring, we can just measure everything else out. So we already established that the fabric, let's get that angle first. So that's the angle for the back of the thing there. Okay, so that's the angle for the back of the box. That's the left-hand side of the box. We know that that's the top of the box, and it's the horizon, at least for the camera. I'm a little taller than the camera at the moment. But remember, we already established that halfway between here and here is the bottom of the fabric. So if we just say we start here, find halfway. So that's where the fabric goes. The fabric kind of lumps up a little bit over here. I'm just kind of loosely throwing the fabric in because I don't really intend to draw it all that accurately, because it's not the point. There's a little crease. It's directly above that little intersection. So I can draw that pretty easily. Okay, so that's pretty good on the fabric. And the rest of the objects you just measure like you've been doing. So I hope that that clarifies how to measure. Now, one of the drawbacks to having your horizon line on the page is the objects end up being really, really small. And you may not want that. But otherwise, it's a good thing to know how to do. It's going to be very, very important